The Shigir Idol is the world's oldest known wooden sculpture. Its discovery upended scholars' views on when humans began making ritual art. The sculpture was found in 1890 at a depth of 4 meters in the Peat Bog of Shigir, on eastern slope of the Middle Urals, approximately 100 kilometers from the Russian city of Yekaterinburg. Investigations in this area had begun 40 years earlier, following the discovery of various prehistoric objects in an open-cast gold mine. The body of the Shigir Idol is covered in geometric patterns, among which human-like faces are scattered. A head with an uneasy expression tops the sculpture. The relic, or what's left of it, is carved from a great slab of freshly cut larch. It was extracted in 10 parts that were carted to Yekaterinburg and displayed at a local museum. Its director allowed the then aspiring archaeologist Dmitry Lobanov to assemble the main fragments into a 2.8 meter tall figure with legs tightly crossed. That is why you can see photos showing the idol in this pose on the internet. However, it wasn't an accurate reconstruction. In 1914, archaeologist Vladimir Tolmachev integrated the unused fragments into his variant of the reconstruction, which suggested that the original height of the statue was an impressive 5.3 meters. Unfortunately, much of the sculpture's bottom half went missing after the Bolshevik coup in Russia, and Tolmachev's sketches of the section are all that remain. For more than a century, the Shigir Idol was considered a curiosity, assumed to be at most a few thousand years old. It changed in the 1990s, when it was first radiocarbon dated. The results gave an age of around 9,500 years. Nobody expected it to be this old, and many scholars suggested that the dating was incorrect, because they believed that the hunter-gatherers who inhabited the area 9,500 years ago would have been incapable of crafting and decorating such a massive object. Over the years, further analyses were carried out, and in 2021 scientists from the University of Göttingen in Germany and the Institute of Archaeology of the Russian Academy of Sciences published the results of their research, in which they used accelerator mass spectrometry, dating the idol close to the end of the last ice age, about 12,000 years before present. This dating makes it the oldest known monumental wooden sculpture in the world. It is more than twice as old as the Egyptian pyramids, and about the same age as the earliest settlement at the famous Gobekli Tepe archaeological site. At the start of this video, I mentioned that the idol is an example of ritual art. Although we don't really know its purpose, the artwork is very different from the kind of realistic paintings seen, for example, in the Lascaux caves, estimated to be around 17,000 years old. The geometric patterns and faces are more than just a depiction of what the artist had seen around him. They are very stylized and seem to have a symbolic meaning. The arrangement of the ornaments suggests they carry encrypted information. While the message remains an utter mystery to modern people, we can still take a closer look at the artwork and attempt to interpret it. The head at the top of the sculpture, although depicted in a simplistic manner, doesn't have a passive facial expression. With an O-shaped mouth, it looks as if it is making a sound. The prominent straight brow ridges, forwarded chin and crooked nose look more masculine than feminine. However, there is no definitive indication of the portrayed person's gender. It could be that it is not a person at all. The shape of the head gives it an eerie look. It may be an image of a spirit. Overall, it makes an unnerving impression, which could indicate that it was some kind of a warning sign or a boundary marker meant to deter strangers from crossing into a specific territory or a sacred area. The idol's body is flat and rectangular. Geometrical motifs decorate its surface, including zigzag lines, chevrons, herringbone patterns, and other shapes. Horizontal lines at the level of the thorax may represent ribs. Apart from the face at the top, several other faces are visible at various points along the sculpture. The arrangement resembles a totem pole. Researchers compared the imagery of the Shigir Idol with other artwork from roughly the same period, including the paintings found in the Ignatievskaya cave, located almost 300 kilometers southwest of Yekaterinburg. They have focused on details that reveal the sexual identity of the cave's anthropomorphic image. The breasts and the numerous rows of dots between the legs indicate its gender. This way of marking a sex attribute is also characteristic for one of the figures located at the base of the Shigir Idol. This was the basis for classifying it as female. The ornamentation on the sculpture was carved using 3 different sizes of chisels. In addition, following his 2014 examination of the sculpture, Mikhail Zilin, an archaeologist at the Institute of Archaeology in Moscow, discovered another, 8th face in the sculpture. He also asserted that the faces were carved last of all, using tools made from the lower jaw bones of a beaver, with sharpened incisor teeth. According to Zilin's research, unlike totem poles, the idol was not dug into the ground, but was standing on a relatively hard, presumably stone pedestal. It may have been propped up against a tree or a rock face. The lower part of the sculpture is flattened by the pressure exerted by the idol's weight. It stood like that for about 2 or 3 decades. Then it cracked in the middle, and a series of smaller cracks also appeared. Eventually, it fell into a long-gone paleo lake, where the peat's antimicrobial properties protected it like a time capsule. Many scholars have proposed different interpretations of the markings. Svetlana Savchenko of the Yekaterinburg History Museum says that a straight line could denote land or horizon, the boundary between earth and sky, water and sky, or the borderline between the worlds. A wavy line or zigzag symbolized water, a snake, a lizard, or determined a certain border. In addition, the zigzag signaled danger. Cross, rhombus, square, circle depicted the fire or the sun. Savchenko argues that the idol tells the story of the creation of the world as understood by Mesolithic people. The vertical arrangement of the images may reflect the sequence of events. Mikhail Zilin thinks the faces represent spirits that people believed inhabited the world. The vertical position of figures, one above the other, probably relates to hierarchy. Images on the front and back panels of the idol possibly indicated that they belonged to different worlds. If the idol stood very close to the lake, then it could mark a shrine or a boundary between 2 worlds, land and water. For thousands of years, bodies of water, wells and springs had their symbolic significance. In some cultures, lakes, ponds and bogs were perceived as gateways to the underworld. Often they were believed to be inhabited by supernatural beings. People would make offerings of precious items, weapons, or human sacrifices to these entities. Even today, we throw coins into wishing wells and fountains, which probably echoes traditions going back to prehistory. So the area where the idol was placed could have served ritual purposes related to the spirits of the lake and possibly the forest. The zigzags would represent water, and chevrons could be trees. The faces would represent the spirits inhabiting those realms, with the most powerful spirit portrayed on top and overlooking them and the whole land depicted by the horizontal lines. Maybe it was an air spirit blowing wind out of its mouth, but it's just my speculation. There are many more interpretations. Some scholars say that the lines, wavy patterns, and chevrons depict headdresses and decorations on clothing that shamans would wear. Others say that those patterns represent a landscape, possibly a map. The Shigir Idol is displayed in the Sverdlovsk Regional Studies Museum in Yekaterinburg, Russia.